Hello, everyone. And we are live. Welcome to the Scene Live. So, this is a space for entrepreneurs who are building something meaningful and want a business that supports their life, not just their income. I'm Kim Speed, and I am a brand clarity coach, and I work with experienced professionals who have started service based businesses, but are still trying to build more consistent clients and income. And on this show, we share real stories from entrepreneurs, those things that worked, that those things that didn't, and the lessons that you only learn by actually building a business. So I'm really glad you're here. So today, my guest is somebody who has spent over 20 years inside some pretty complex organizations, watching what happens when a business grows faster than the systems holding it together. He has worked across manufacturing, logistics, and operations. And what he kept seeing, no matter the industry, was the same underlying problem. Too much of how the business ran lived inside people's heads. And when those people were unavailable or overwhelmed or just done, things got fragile fast. And that experience is exactly what shaped what he does now. Martin Cable is the founder of Sinclairis Consulting, and he helps business owners build the kind of simple, repeatable systems that let a business run the way it's supposed to, without the founder needing to be in the middle of everything. And he calls it reducing operational risk. And I call it getting your life back. So let's welcome Martin to the show. Hello, Martin.
Hi, Kim. Thank you very much for a great introduction.
Thank you for joining me today. I am so excited to have you here. It's great to see you. And I'm interested in getting into this conversation. But first, let's start at the beginning. You spent over 20 years inside corporate operations before making the leap to having your own business. Can you walk us through the journey, what you saw, and why you jumped into this, and what has shifted for you?
Yeah, most definitely. So my journey with systems started a long time ago. And I think originally it would have started when I did my degree in the science-based subject. So having done my degree in material science, all the experiments obviously have a method, etc. So I was always exposed to a system and then experienced them more when I moved in then and did my PhD. As I then started moving around the operational area, started to realize that all these ways of working in an assembly type process, everything is always very well detailed. But every now and then you realize that while someone can make the product really, really well, there'd be less detail, say, elsewhere in the business on how to process a purchase order. Now, at the time, I was kind of a lot more unaware of that than I am now. But as my career then developed and moving into other ISO kind of regulated environments, 9001, 13485, etc., you then started to realize that some of the systems that they have, maybe it's a policy and a procedure, but never enough detail to actually show someone actually how it's done, to the point that you then start to see these dependencies. The founder may be involved continuously, or conversely, there's always that one person in the office who knows how to do something. And over time, in reflection, it all started piecing together that, there may be something here.
Yeah.
And that's always a strange one, because I was always in the manufacturing side, where everything is literally defined very well.
Getting things done.
Yeah, and I do remember I kind of laughed to myself earlier when I was thinking about this, because I do remember in one of my earlier careers that we had one of these big fandangle fancy photocopiers that could fax, etc. I did an SOP on how to use the fax part, and I remember someone picking out, goes, "What do we need one of these for to use a photocopier?" And it's like, well, yeah, you say that, but every week there's always someone shouting across the office, "Who remembers how to use this fax thing on this?" Yeah.
It's so true.
Yeah. And it's one of those moments that kind of really stuck, and you think, yeah, sometimes, yeah, not everyone's ready for, yeah, that kind of assistance.
Yeah.
But in hindsight, it's one of those weird things as well, that in hindsight, yeah, these patterns are always there. And
Right.
and probably about a year ago, I had a bit of an unexpected transition point in my career, which then gave me that time to be able to stop and reflect about what is it that I actually liked doing up to this point. And I've always liked the continuous improvement side. I've always had that kind of tendency to be able to look at a process and understand it, get what I see. And during this other point of reflection, kind of realizing, well, yeah, continuous improvement, something I kind of want to journey back into. I also came across the book Systemology by David Jennings. And as I started reading that, it was almost like a really strange, enlightening moment, that it was one of these, I wish I had this 10 years ago.
Everybody needs this.
Yeah. When I was in the operational space, in the manufacturing space, we knew what we had to do there. We had to kind of understand and get the work instructions for what we built, what we made.
Right.
But as a business as a whole, it's so easy sometimes to think, yeah, we need these systems. It's really important we get these systems. And it kind of stays in that important layer, but never kind of gets to the urgent layer. And then at the same time, you always end in the, yeah, okay, we're going to do it. Where do we start? And it's that, and several times in several other companies, we got to that kind of, oh, you kind of end up in that analysis paralysis loop of not really knowing where to start. But
yeah, you don't do anything until your hair's on fire and you're running around and things aren't working. And then you're in emergency mode and you feel like you're under the gun as well. So yeah. How can you do this fast?
Exactly. Yeah. And as soon as I read that Systemology book, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is it. This kind of defines such a perfect starting point in a business. That this is it. This is brilliant. You know what? Yeah, I understand Lean. I've got Lean Six Sigma black belt. I've got an MBA. I get this stuff, but this just put so much clarity on it. I thought I need to know more about this, and literally found a website, spoke to a couple of guys there, Dave Jennings, Rob Morgan, and then went and become certified in how to apply Systemology into businesses. Because, yeah, I'm kind of trying to calm myself down and not get overexcited and sound evangelical. But it was one of those enlightening moments of if I knew this 10 years ago, yeah, it would have helped so much more what I had been.
Well, and it's interesting too, because it's almost like you need somebody from the outside to look in and see the things that you can't see because you're involved every day, and you're not going to see those because you don't have the opportunity. You don't have the clarity. You're just inundated with doing the thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we've all been there at many points in our career, that even though we know we're doing it because it's always been done that way and it may not be the best way, at that point in time, it is a way, and it's a way that delivers. And although we'll cover this in a bit more detail later, but the other point as well is that when I do go in to work with a company as well, I don't look to change anything that they're doing, because what they're doing does work. So if companies are making revenue, what they do does work. It may not be perfect in their eyes, but if we're capturing what they do, at least we now have a baseline to change from. Whereas if things just start changing ad hoc without understanding the influence across the board, then you may cause more challenges than benefit.
More havoc than,
Exactly. Yeah, exactly that.
Yeah. Well, and because I talk to a lot of small business owners and even people that are solopreneurs, what you're describing as operational risk, that phrase might make some people think this is only a big company problem. So why would somebody building a small business care about this?
That is a really common perception. And to be quite honest with you, you're absolutely right. Operational risk can sound like a big company problem, but it actually does start when it's much smaller. It applies to any business where work flows through people. And also, when I first started Sinclairis, if I was talking about, hey, you need to start thinking about how you systemize your business,
Yeah.
it's always that thing where it's sitting in the important but never urgent. As soon
Right.
as I start reframing as a, hey, look, if you don't have systems, you've got a big operational risk, it does
Yeah.
elevate up into that urgent part. But in reality, even in very small teams, if you've got a point where you're seeing work being done differently every time, decisions always looping back to one person, or there's just that general feeling that things are getting harder as the demand increases, that is it. That's sitting there. And sometimes just that feeling of things just being harder than it should be is that green light that, or sorry, red light that operational risk is lurking. And the truth is, it doesn't start when you're big. It's that thing, I
It
guess, that
grows with you.
starting point where work isn't done the same way twice,
Right.
because then that
And
starts
that
to compound and compound.
and that is such what I call a brand issue as well. So many
Yeah,
people think it's just an operations, but it really affects your brand. And because I'm so much about brand and what it can do for you, if your brand is not operating effectively and efficiently, and then you're not providing the experience that, or the best experience that somebody could have, that affects your brand and the way that people think about you and feel about you and talk about you. So this is actually really important.
hmm,
And why somebody, even a small business, needs to start to think about this as they're growing.
totally right. And you mentioned the word effective there. I mean, even if we took the word effective out, because that may imply, say, efficiency within the business.
Right.
But even if the process wasn't effective, it still needs to be consistent. Because as you say,
Yes.
if you're looking at how you engage with a customer at the very first moment, all the way through to you deliver, if that's consistent, that's great.
Yeah.
But if your customer's getting different kind of service, depending on who they talk to, then you're right. That is a real big impact on your brand, because at some point it's great, sometimes it's not. It's a very
Right.
difficult one sometimes to understand how you solve that.
That's an interesting point you just made. We talk about systems, or we've been talking about them in an operational and production manner, but
Hmm.
we're not thinking. That makes me think of, how things are built
Yeah.
or created. But it's also about your sales processes and, your marketing processes and your admin processes. It's like
Mhm.
how you work with your people internally. There's systems for that too, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's so
And
interesting.
yeah, and ultimately, the main goal is always, I would always advocate that you always want to be reducing the variation when there's more than one person doing the same thing. And
Yeah.
that's start to compound that consistency through the process. The efficiency part will follow once you've got that reduced variation. But
Mhm.
every interaction, whether it's external to your customers or internal with team members, there is a system for that. And one of the big operational risks, which is sometimes overlooked, is when information is handed off between teams. If
Right.
that handoff isn't well, if you have no control over that handoff, then that's a big opportunity for something to go wrong.
And I
And
love the word, or the phrase you said, reduce variation.
yeah,
Like that's a simple way to think about it. You don't want this to be different each time, and you don't need somebody coming in and being a cowboy about it. Um,
absolutely.
yeah, because that's going to make things wobble, as I say.
And the challenge as well is that sometimes when things start to wobble, they get worse. They
Yes.
don't necessarily stop wobbling. And you only need several new people or several people doing things differently to create, quite a big ripple.
Well, and then you get the people that are, this isn't working quite well, and they take their own means to fix it, because they see gaps and it's not working for them, because they don't have the system that has been worked out.
And also from my experience as well, that when we talk about these things, I normally refer to them as workarounds.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the times, workarounds would normally be applied with the best intentions, but sometimes those applying the workarounds aren't always aware of the bigger picture.
Yes.
So all the best intentions don't always result in the best outcome.
Right.
So it is really about, what do we need? This piece of the process, what do we need it to do? What do we need it to deliver? How do we identify what good is? What's our standard? And how do we then ensure that it actually does work, deliver, and everyone's capable of doing it?
Well, and you talk about this fragile state, or the fragility being hidden.
Yeah.
Why do so many business owners not see it until something actually breaks?
Well, that's a really interesting point. And in quite a few of my LinkedIn posts, I always refer back to this iceberg model. Everything above the surface may look great. No reason not to suspect anything's wrong, because we've still got revenue. Revenue's still coming in. Everything's still working. But under the surface, there's still these operational risks lurking. You've got dependency. They may be asked every 5 minutes a question. So they may be involved in lots of processes. They may be still involved in sign-offs, handoffs, etc. So that dependency is then starting to slow and create this fragility. It may not be them. It may be another person in the team. There may be one of those situations where only Sarah in accounts knows how to process that type of invoice, or no one knows how to set that machine up. But when Fred comes back from lunch, he knows exactly how to do it. And these dependencies are sat there. But that's okay, because they're kind of working. Handoffs may not be working properly. There may not be any clear ownership. There may be inconsistent processes. But the challenge is, and what I've always noticed, which I've not yet quite understood though, is the ability of people to fill those gaps very effectively and become the glue within the organization to fix these things. And the challenge is that if someone then is off sick or goes on holiday, that's when these cracks start to appear. And if you're lucky, it may only stay as a crack. If you're unlucky, it may become a chasm. But all the while that someone's filling these gaps, people may not be unaware, because all they're seeing is that things are still happening. Or when they get busy, they maybe look a bit more chaotic. But because we're busier, we can associate busy with chaos, not realizing, well, actually, if we're busy and the systems are running, that should still flow through quite nicely.
That brings up something that I heard somebody talking about this morning. It was actually a mergers and acquisition broker, and he was talking about people that are, building businesses that they can eventually sell. And he said one of the biggest red flags is if you hear somebody say, "Oh, you know what, this business, it's like my baby." He said, run, because they're the ones that have put themselves in every role, and if you take them away, then it's probably not the same business.
Absolutely. And it is interesting, because I've come across exactly that on several occasions too. And there are quite a few posts I read on LinkedIn with a similar part, in that some founders may see it as a strength. But the thing which I always kind of try and remember is that when the business started, the founders were the people getting engaged in the processes, doing the work and physically making everything happen. Now, all of a sudden, the business starts to grow. There's this expectation that, well, you can't kind of be the technician role anymore. You've got to kind of move it to the leadership. But some may still want to be in that technical role because they see it as leadership. But in reality, what you are doing is really just holding back your team.
Yeah.
You employ people for a reason, and that isn't to watch you do it. That is to empower them to do it. And sometimes if there's that missing pieces of information, then that's one thing we do as well. We make sure we extract this information out of the owner's head to then allow everyone to do it. And it comes back to the Michael Gerber quote about, as a business owner, you should be working on the business and not in the business.
Yeah.
But the most amazing thing, or thing which is also kind of underlooked, is how much time is spent doing that.
Right.
Then how that's going to start to affect your overall life. Because, sometimes not everyone realizes that they are that key dependency. But the true test then becomes, well, if you took 3 weeks holiday,
what would happen?
Would your business still be running? Would there be a cloud of smoke? Or would you be getting a phone call within 50 minutes of leaving the building?
Yeah.
And it is that point of, if you get to a point where your business runs without you, then you are in a position to be able to work on it, look at the growth, grow further. But then more importantly, you've now built something which is a true asset.
Right.
No doubt, someone will probably buy your business if it depended on you, but the value isn't on the business anymore. It's probably more about your book, who you know, what you know. But if the business runs without you, then in reality, anyone can buy your business and it will still run.
And it's funny because it's really, when we talk about having a business, it's what we want.
Yeah.
But it's hard to get there. So I want to go into...
Sorry, Kim, I was going to say, you start the business for a reason, and that isn't get a lower paid job and work more hours.
No, which happens so easily if you let it. And that's why I wanted to talk about systemology, because let's face it, when people hear systems, maybe their eyes glaze over a little bit, or they picture having to do, a document for everything. So what does it actually look like in practice?
So in practice, if I start with a client, basically what I want to do, and as I mentioned before, I'm not talking, I don't even want to think about reinventing anything.
Right.
But the point in time where I start working with a client, I know that their business is functioning. They are engaging with customers. They are onboarding them. They are, I guess, making the sale, onboarding them. They are delivering a service or a product. They are taking money, and they are then going back and looking at the kind of referral type system on that journey. Now, all I would do, and that journey I just explained is what we refer to as the critical client flow. That's the first piece I ever focus on when I start working with a customer or client. I know if we get that piece right, that there's going to be between 15 to 20 systems in there, which we can capture. And that will then be pretty much 20% of the business's processes, which deliver 80% of the results.
Right.
That's pretty much the money line. And I would typically do that on a 12-week sprint. And within that sprint, obviously, we go through this piece when we look at the actual flow itself. The next part is, okay, well, each of these functions, as a department, who owns these departments, who works in these departments, of these people in this department, now who's the best person at this process? Now, because they're the ones we want to replicate. Who's that knowledgeable worker? How do we then extract the information from them? And it just slowly builds and builds and builds until we've got quite a nice kind of group of systems. And at that point, we then start looking, okay, well, we need to organize these to make sure they're available. Ideally, we also want to make, we also want to make sure that these systems aren't just put into a folder and put on a shelf. We want to make sure that they're actually available to whoever needs them when they need them, and linked to a task, which is also key, as they start to be integrated into the business.
Yeah.
So we always want to be looking to make sure we get usable systems. We're not looking for shelfware. We really want to make sure that anything that we're doing is available for anyone to be able to pick up, follow, and do that task. If Sarah's called in sick one day, someone can pick up what she does and literally do it.
Well, it's interesting too, because it sounds like, working with the people or with your system, and the way you engage with companies is working with the people, as you said, not tearing things apart, but just seeing how it works. But when you do that, it also opens up their ability to see maybe that there is a gap here, and maybe
Absolutely.
they're the ones that point it out. And
absolutely. There's many times where I've sat down for an extraction, and there are moments where, I've always got to kind of say, well, look, everything you're telling me about what you're going to do is fantastic. However, what is it we're doing now? Because it's the now thing that we can fix. The future thing is normally, we're going to get another CRM in a couple of years' time. We won't need this. But okay, that's a couple of years' time. How about what we're doing now? And when we get this piece of information and it changes, then you send it over to operations. Who do you send it to? How is it sent? How do they receive it? And we are just walking through the pathway of information. But the capturing process is also something we really try and keep as simple as possible. I can do most of my work from Zoom, so I can record someone doing the activity. And then as soon as I've got that recording, I can then create the system from that and append the video to it. So not only is there the written word, there's also the video. And as these then start to compound, the next time they're looking for a new employee to come in, no longer does this new employee have to shadow someone, wait for the opportunity to be shown how to do something. Oh, we've got our systems assets, which will get
that's brilliant.
then ahead, familiar, know how things are done. So instead of it being a watch me do this, it's a case of, okay, you read the system, you've seen the system, you're happy with it. Yeah, any questions? No. Okay, well, we're going to do this together. Then you're going to do it. So the whole power of systems really does kind of add benefits everywhere. Again, I'm trying to not get too excited, but the power is huge. It's absolutely huge.
So I have a question about the owners. When a founder is resisting this, what is something that, when you're working with them and their feathers are getting a bit ruffled, what usually changes their mind?
Well, interestingly enough, this would need to be an engagement that I'd need to have with the founder and also the owner. Mm-hmm. There are times when the founder or owner want to be involved in the whole of the process, involved in every meeting. But typically, what we always try and do is have that light touch. As a founder and owner, there's loads more you can be doing in an hour than being spent with me and the knowledgeable worker doing the extraction. But we feedback all the time. But the key interaction with the owner is, hey, look, there's a lot more in your head that's going to help all of your team than I think you realize. Right, let's start going through this. Let's start capturing these pieces that are going to fill in this pathway on our critical client flow. And as soon as we start extracting that and it's being shared, most of the time it's not necessarily the resistance, but the realization that, oh my gosh, yeah, that's why I'm always being asked questions. Yeah. But now, I can offload that and literally just start enabling the team a lot more. I think there are, sorry, to go back again, there are also times though, I think that, when you mentioned about, some people refer to the business as their baby. I think there's still times though where the founder may have that mindset of, but no one else can do it better than I can, or I've known how to do this, which again is one of those moments of, well, yeah, but no one can do it like you because no one knows
how to do it like you.
Start sharing, and we also just become honest with each other and say, well, look, let's not kid ourselves. We're not going to let anyone do anything that leaves the company unless you're happy with what they're doing. So we still need to put some checks and balances in place, that just because you've told me how it is and we've released a system, that unless you're confident that they are meeting the required standard, we're not going to let product go.
Yeah.
There are parts of how we have to reassure that, yes, it is still going to be in safe hands.
I love that. And for most people watching today, they're running, small service-based businesses, consulting like yourself, or coaching, or creative, or maybe even wellness businesses. And they may not have a team yet, but they may use contract people. Is this kind of system and thinking still relevant to them?
Absolutely. All in capitals. I mean, and to be quite honest with you, if they are solo and they are doing something and delivering something, now is the absolute perfect time to start, because you're going to capture everything while it's still simple. What
Yeah.
will happen is that if you're not capturing it now, when you do need it, you're going to be trying to do that whilst you're doing other things. So straight away, it would become more overwhelming. But if you're
It's
slowly
the
things, yeah,
juggling.
exactly. Or you're not going to do something until you've done that. But in reality, if
Yeah.
you're just capturing what you do and how you do it, what that'll also then start to do is introduce that consistency, less variation within what you're doing as well. There are
Yeah.
times when, if it's something which you're doing very frequently, yeah, you're probably going to start to develop the muscle memory. But if there's something you do every month, every 2 months, every quarter, every half year, by having that system in place to just remind you exactly how you did it, so you're not kind of like stabbing the screen with the mouse button. Yeah, it's the best way to do it. And again, the key thing which I always want to try and emphasize, though, is that you don't need a team to need systems, but you need systems before you build the team. And it's easy
I think that's key.
Yeah.
Well, even remember when before we started this and we were just having a chat, and I said, "Oh, I need a system for this, for the show, because it's grown and become bigger than what it used to be to manage." And I was laughing, thinking, I need a system for this.
The best thing of all, though, is that systems also grow over time.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I've been saying quite a lot recently with my other clients as well is, version 1 is always better than version none.
Yes.
Just something, and it may just be a simple checklist, and that checklist may evolve into something different. But all you really need is just something which is just ensuring that the key things that you need to remember or do have been done, and it's in your mindset, it's on your awareness.
Yeah. And you're right. This made me so aware. So speaking of versions, when you think about the version of yourself who is just starting his journey, what do you wish you had understood sooner about building your business?
I think if I can go back and talk to myself in September, it would be that things just take time.
Yeah.
When I first started, I was at that point, I think it was September the 4th. Yeah, your business is launched, the email's in place. Woke up in the morning thinking, why is my inbox empty? Why is there no one at the door? And I've kind of had that sense of impatience, but then started to realize, well, actually, the business itself has its own timeline. I can't rush it. I've got to rebuild my credibility within LinkedIn around operational risk. But at the time, I would have been talking systems, which, again, as you say, it can clear a room quite quickly. So it is how am I building the message? How am I refining my message? How do I really start to tune in on my audience? What is it I need to do regularly to start getting them to compound? How do I capture my own systems so that I can still have that consistency without having that memory kind of burden? And yeah, I guess the real key lesson is it's not trying to force growth, really just to think about the foundations which I need to build to then put the structure on top to be the next best thing.
Right. That's so it's so interesting how we it's like the shoemaker, right? You have to take time to make your own shoes, and see what you need, and spend time building the systems that you need for your own business.
Exactly. And it's interesting because every now and then I still do go back to all the systems, even if I wanted to, I think, set up a signature file, things like that. It's like, I remember this, I remember having a system, I've got that system, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, it is a 5-minute job now, as I've got the system I can follow. It's not going to be a 5-minute job that rolls into an hour by the time you work it out and repeated and repeated.
And the other thing that you said that was interesting is that, you have to go out there and start to, you're building your personal brand now. And, and it's also, you're learning a new language, because you're used to talking in your expert language, which was great because, it fit in where you worked. But now you have to go out there and bring people in. And I always say it's a translation problem, because you can't just talk in your expert language anymore. You have to talk in their struggle language. You have to talk about what is, on top of mind for them. What is bothering your ideal client, so that they know that you understand them and that you get them and that they should lean in and listen. Because when you talk expert language, they're like, la, 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 la.
And exactly that. And that's something which has also taken a little while to learn and start to tune in on, because I know that no one's ever going to go onto Google and search for internal operational risk. Their questions are going to be, why can't I leave my business? Why does my business fall apart when I go on holiday? Why can't I take an uninterrupted break? Sarah in accounts is leaving. She knows everything. What am I going to do? These are the kind of the challenges. Or why is my rework so high? Why are my processes inconsistent? You can name them, you can see them, and as you rightly say, that's what people are asking about. How do I tune the messages back to those?
Yeah. Martin, this has been such a practical and enlightening conversation. And I know that people that are watching are going to want to take action and probably connect with you. What's the best way for people to have a conversation with you?
Well, my LinkedIn's there. I mean, feel free to connect. Feel free to direct message me on LinkedIn and go from there.
Fantastic. Well, and if you go to Martin's LinkedIn, you're also going to see get access to his website if you'd like. But reach out to Martin. I'm sure that if you had questions, that you'd be willing to have a chat with people.
Always willing to have a chat. Absolutely.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for coming on and being my guest and sharing your knowledge and translating that into what people really need to understand. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much, Kim. A pleasure's mine as well.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. And reach out to Martin if you want to know about how to make your business better simply. This is a great way to have a conversation and pick his brain. Maybe he can help you. So anyways, we'll see you next time in The Scene Live. Take care for now. Bye, everybody.